What's up, everybody, and welcome to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, and this is my non-spoiler review of Joker Folie Deux. And now there will be a very in-depth spoiler review coming down later, so please stay tuned for that. But okay, let's get into it. So, Joker Folie Deux. I guess the question is, was this movie Folie a doo-doo, as some reviewers would have you believe? Now, okay, my opinion is no, I don't think it is. But that being said, was this movie a disappointment in many ways? Yes, I do think so. Um, but I would say there is still a level of craft on display to where I would say if you enjoyed the first movie any at all, I still think this is worth a watch. I think there is still some good performances in this movie. I think there's some interesting things that happen to where I would still say it might be worth a watch. Now, just for some context, I am somebody who enjoyed the first movie when I didn't think I would. I remember when it was first announced that they were going to do a Joker solo movie. I didn't like the idea of that. I think sometimes with these villain-led movies, you know, you kind of have to turn them into an anti-hero to make us want to have any interest in seeing how their story develops. And a lot of times I'm just like, you know what? I'd rather see the Joker Batman conflict, you know? But I gotta say, and also, Todd Phillips, not that I've seen like all of his movies, but I've seen a fair number. And, at the time he was known for doing comedies like The Hangover, which I know is a movie a lot of people like. I'm like, it's fine. I watched it once. I was like, yeah, this is fine. Somehow I watched the second one, which is the same exact movie, only worse. And I didn't bother with the third because I'm sure it's the same story. So just talent wise and concept wise, I was like, But then, you know what? Maybe it's because my expectations were low, but I went in, I watched the first Joker movie, and I gotta say, I actually was pleasantly surprised. I ended up liking it quite a bit. And I honestly think some reviewers were very unfair with that movie, and they got things out of it that I certainly didn't. And I almost think there was like some, uh, I don't know, it was just some very strange commentary around that movie. I really feel like there was some people who had it out for that movie for one reason or another. Um, but I after that movie, they announced. I mean, and I mean, Elephant in the Room. That movie was a $1 billion movie somehow, some way, um, and so it almost made a sequel inevitable. And I think therein lies the biggest problem: is this movie exists because the bean counters saw how well the first movie did, and they were like, "You gotta make a second one," rather than somebody being, "Oh, I think we have a legit story worth telling," and coming back to this property. Um, and so, when I heard they were making another one, I was very skeptical. Sounds like a cash grab. But then again, listen, sometimes things start out with that way and a good movie develops anyway. So you got to kind of keep an open mind and not be cynical all the time. And then I heard that it was going to be a musical. And here's the thing, I am not big on musicals. I find most of them to be very strange. Although I have admitted on this show that Bed Knobs and Broomsticks is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it is a musical. Um, but I think for me, the music aspect of this movie is one of the weaknesses. Now, you got Joaquin Phoenix, who is a fantastic actor, and his acting in this is fantastic. But his singing, kind of whispery in a lot of moments, kind of hard to make out. You know, and he can't be everything. But then they brought in Lady Gaga, and she's a great singer, and that's her strength. I haven't seen her act in a ton of stuff, but I thought she was pretty good here, both acting and singing wise. Um, I think people argue that maybe she's not given as much to do as they would like, but when she is used, I think she is used effectively. You also got Brendan Gleeson, who plays the guard. I think Brendan Gleeson's pretty much good in anything I've ever seen him in, and he's still good here. So a lot of good acting, but listen, the music, is mostly comprised of old standards that you've probably heard, and I just don't think any of them are particularly standouts or memorable. Like I don't think there's any of the musical numbers that somebody's like, oh, I could see myself going on YouTube and just watching that particular number over and over again because it's so entertaining or it sounds so good. It's not like that. And a part of me, even though I find musicals weird, I think I would almost appreciated this movie more if they did create original songs and portray them how they are in other musicals, where they're just kind of spontaneously start and the other person sings along, and and it starts going around like that, and you can still write it off as happening in the Joker's mind, as some of these numbers clearly are. But I don't know. I think I would just, even if that they did that and it totally crashed and burned, I think I would have appreciated the attempts more. And the other thing that's weird in this movie is some of the music numbers are obvious, like dream sequences in Joker's mind, not really happening. And then others seemingly have to be real. There's also some weirdness there. I'll get into it more in my spoiler review, but there's a scene that happens early on that they almost make you think isn't real, but by the time the movie's over, it pretty much has to be real. I'll get into more of that in the spoiler review. Also, they bring back a character in this movie from the first movie who I think in a small way kind of lessens a moment in the first movie, and I didn't really care for that either. And I think just pacing wise, this movie, admittedly, it's just slow at points. Like it definitely drags in points. And I think the main thing for me is in the first movie, there's a sense of dread. There's a lot of suspense in the first movie because the Joker's out there and you don't know what's going to happen. He could kill anybody at any moment. And I think they showed a lot of restraint in the first movie because he doesn't kill nearly as many people as you think he might. But in this movie, because he's essentially in prison the whole time, there's not really that sense of suspense. Like you don't suspect that he's going to get away, like, and be able to cause a lot of havoc, like he does in the first movie. And so you just you never have the tension of the first movie, and you're just kind of waiting to see how things play out. The latter half of the movie is his trial. And if you didn't see the first movie, like they reference it constantly in the second half of the movie. So I really do think you have to see the first one before you see this one, which, it's fine. It makes sense, but I don't think it's like if anybody out there is wondering, hey, can I watch this one without watching the first one? I would say don't. It doesn't really make sense to do, especially since the first one is a much stronger film. Okay, so well, one more thing to touch on is I will say, even though I find this movie a disappointment, I do like Todd Phillips trying his hand at these kind of movies rather than the screwball comedies he was known for in the past. I kind of hope he, no matter what he does, I hope he kind of stays down that lane, because I do think he has some talent. Even though, like, I haven't loved most of his movies, I do think there is some talent there. And so, hopefully, if he gets, more bites at the apple, he can do something. Now, this movie isn't going to help him nearly as well as the first Joker movie, because it is not tracking well monetarily. Just my experience. I admittedly went to an early matinee showing of the movie, but I was literally the only one in my theater. Nobody else on opening weekend. So I don't know if that bodes well. But okay. So what would I score this bad boy? Scale of 1 to 10. I am gonna go with a 5.5 out of 10. I don't think it's the absolute rotten dreck that a lot of other reviewers are saying that it is, but it is slow. It is disappointing. None of the musical numbers are especially memorable. Some of them straight up aren't. Like the Joaquin Phoenix solo ones aren't particularly well sung. That aspect of it, in retrospect, seems unnecessary or should have been done in a totally different way. So would I recommend watching this movie? Certainly, I would not recommend paying the money to see it in theaters. But I will say this. If you're somebody who watched and enjoyed the first Joker, I do think it is worth watching this when it comes to streaming. This is probably not a movie I will ever revisit, but I'm glad I did watch it, and I think I could recommend watching it once. But yeah, I don't think it's going to get a lot of repeat viewings for people. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have seen some reviews out there of people who seemingly enjoyed it quite a bit, but to me, definitely a mid movie. All right, guys. Well, what did you think of Joker Folie Deux? Please comment down below and let me know. And remember, I will have a very, very in-depth spoiler review on the way. So that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, comment down below. Please leave thumbs up. Subscribe to our small YouTube channel. You can subscribe in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. So yeah, I will see you guys for the spoiler review. But until then, I hope you've been enjoying the review. Bye, guys.